Evening, everyone. It's a little bit after 7 p.m. This is Owen Sound on
Okay, I'm there. Thanks.
2020. I note that we're using electronic means and it will be recorded. Going, that's basement boardroom. My next act, I'll balance the ball on my nose. Joining us in the council chambers is Councillor Dodd and Councillor Gregg, the city managers, plural, city clerk and deputy clerk. All other council and staff members are joining us via video. Would like to remind those of you who are joining the meeting from home, keep the microphone on mute unless you're speaking. And a council or staff member wishes to speak, I would ask you to raise your hand and I will note who wants to speak. We'll address them when it is their turn. For each vote, I will ask each councillor whether they are in favor or opposed that those at home can hear, so that those at home can hear how each member is voting. Unless a recorded vote is requested, how each person votes will not be recorded in the minutes. For a councillor present through video that declares a pecuniary interest, please make sure to turn off your video for that item. The clerk will mute the microphone so that the person at home has virtually left the meeting. Once the item has been dealt with, the clerk will unmute the mic so that the councillor can. So welcome everyone. Did not have a closed session tonight, although we did have a special meeting just before this that has been recorded. It's with regard to the water and wastewater rates. It was a presentation from Hampson and Associates. And it's recorded. It will be up on YouTube and on through the city, so you can all see it soon. Now I'm down to number 4. I'm calling for additional business. If anyone has any additional business. I see Marion.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to ask the Director of Corporate Services for a bit of an update on the mill dam.
Okay. Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
Thank you, Worship. I have 2 items. I have some comments about the river at Harrison Park and comments on the Grey Bruce Health Unit.
Okay.
Your Worship. I have
Councillor Hamley, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question on the 10th Street Bridge.
Okay. And anyone else out there? Seeing none in the room. Seeing none. Any staff? I'm seeing none, and I will speak to one matter being COVID fairly quickly tonight. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. I see Deputy Mayor O'Leary's hand up.
Thank you, Worship. I have a pecuniary interest in item 12F, as my wife is an employee with the Owen Sound Attack.
Thank you. Confirmation of the council minutes.
Moved by myself, Councillor Gregg, seconded by Councillor Dodd, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on April 27th, 2020, as printed, be adopted.
Thank you. So in favor or opposed, Councillor Dodd?
Favor.
Councillor Gregg?
In favor.
Councillor Hamley?
In favor.
Councillor Kepke?
In favor.
Councillor Merton?
In favor.
Deputy Mayor O'Leary?
In favor.
Tamming?
Mute button. Can you hear me? I'm in favor.
Oh, there we go.
Yes.
Yep. So in favor or opposed?
Thank you.
Okay, so that's good. Thanks. Councillor Thomas. Councillor Thomas.
Mute buttons. Mine's acting up too, but yes, I'm in favor.
Okay, good. So that's carried. Thank you. Motion number, we're at number 7 on the agenda, motion to move council into committee of the whole.
Moved by myself, Councillor Gregg, seconded by Councillor Dodd, that City Council now move into committee of the whole to consider public meetings, deputations and presentations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports of city staff, consent agenda, committee minutes, matters postponed, motions for which notice was previously given, and additional business.
Thank you. In favor or opposed, Councillor Dodd?
In favor?
Councillor Gregg?
In favor?
Councillor Hamley?
In favor?
Councillor Kepke?
In favor.
Councillor Merton?
Favor.
Deputy Mayor O'Leary?
In favor?
Councillor Tamming? I see you there, John. I still see there we go. Go ahead.
In fa-
Thanks. And Councillor Thomas?
in favor.
So that's carried. So we're now in committee of the whole. And at this point, I want to slow down just a little bit since we're a little less formal. And I want to take a minute to welcome our new city manager, Tim Simmons, who started today. He has a Bachelor of Arts from Abilene Christian University in Mass Communications and Media Studies, and that's in Texas. After several years in the private sector, he moved into municipal governance. He comes to us from the city of Vaughan, where over the past 10 years, he held the position of interim city manager, director of economic development, chief, I think, of corporate initiatives and intergovernmental relations. We want to welcome him and his wife, Jill, and their children to our city. I'm hearing, Mr. Simmons, already that there might be a minor soccer coach out there looking forward to your family moving here. I'm just hearing those rumors. They said, on sound, we all know everything. On behalf of council, we're very glad that you're here and look forward to working with you. So thanks for coming in and joining us. Anything you want to say right now? I don't know if you're on the camera, maybe, but.
Mayor, I just want to say thank you to yourself and all of council. I'm honored to be here and the privilege of being your new city manager. I want to take a moment just to thank Wayne and the senior leadership team. Today was my first day in City Hall. They made it a great experience, all very helpful. I'm very much looking forward to leading, bringing value to residents, the business, and leading such a great staff. So thank you very much for the warm introduction.
Great, thank you very much. Now, councillors, I see some hands up. Acting City Manager Glenn Henry, is that your hand that's up?
That's right, Your Worship.
Go ahead.
Hello, Wayne. Tonight from retirement land, just about 10 blocks down the road from where you're sitting right at this very moment. Looking out over a beautiful, sunny Old Sound Bay. This opportunity, I'm honored to have this opportunity this evening, Wayne, just to say a few words to you on the eve of your last council meeting and your pending retirement. I think back about 20 years when you joined the city and you had been with the P&C, and which became GBE, came to the city and brought with you your common sense approach to financial management and your leadership and your team spirit, and we appreciated very much having you join our senior management team at that point in time. And over the years, you of course progressed through, and given your unique skill set and the requirements of the city during particularly these last 5 years, you brought to the table a lot of assets that really helped the city get through a tough time. It has been a pleasure to work with you, Wayne. I know that really from the onset of your career in municipal government, and I guess mine started quite a bit before yours. It was probably around the time that you joined the city that we experienced a lot of downloading from the provincial government and a lot of financial pressures. And it wasn't a very fun time to be involved, frankly, in municipal management because of the downward pressure. It didn't seem like we were necessarily community building anymore. It seemed like we were more trying to manage in restricting financial times, but we all managed to get through that. And your level-headedness and your common sense approach and things like analogies that I can remember, like, hey, if the roof is leaking, we aren't putting that addition on. We're fixing the roof, and that's what you brought to the table as our treasurer, and certainly later on as a city manager. we had to do more with less, and it's always been a check, and it still is to this day, and it probably won't ever stop being that way. And as I said, your skill set really did well with our needs during those times. When I think back to the late 70s when I began in my career, you know, city administrations required different skill sets at that position, and over time, it became more important to have a strong financial head at the head. And that's what you brought, and that was a leadership that you brought to our team. And I just really want to say all the best to you in your future endeavors. And of course, I'm going to likely see you a lot more on the golf course, but I'll give you a little hint. You're not going to see your score improve, Wayne. So you can forget about that right now. It doesn't work that way. But I am looking forward to seeing you out there a little more often at the curling club as well. And I'd like to take this opportunity to wish both you and Darlene a very healthy, happy, long retirement. Wayne, all the best to you, pal.
That's great. Thanks. Go ahead, Wayne. Wait for the end. Okay. Who else has got their hand up? I think I see former Deputy Mayor Arlene Wright is her hand up. Are you there, Arlene?
A minute, I had to turn my microphone on. I'm here.
Go ahead.
I can't see Wayne. Is Wayne there?
He's hiding. I think you need to turn your camera down towards you. It might be pointing at your ceiling, Arlene.
I can see you.
Okay. Well, go ahead.
Yes. Well, Wayne, I just want to tell you that I'm very happy for you. Yeah, you came into your position at a time when your style of leadership was needed, to calm the waters, and you did a great job. During your term, you know, you rebuilt City Hall and got First Avenue, 7th, 8th Street to 9th Street, market area project was finished finally. And you've got almost half of the street bridge. I wonder what you would consider would be your highlight of your career as city manager. To me, if I was going to consider the highlight of you, it would be that the door was always open. I'm sure that it still is. There was never a time when I went to see you that I wasn't welcome to sit down and discuss whatever issue I came to talk. So I'm you're going to enjoy your retirement. Boy, I sure.
Great. Thank you, Arlene. Going to go to former Councillor McMahon, and I think he's right there too with his hand up.
Can you hear me?
Yep, you still going? Sorry.
Okay. I just want to thank Wayne for his service to this city, and thank you, Your Worship, for this opportunity to tell Wayne that.
Thanks, Arlene. Jim, are you out there?
I'm here, Your Worship. Thank you. I was a little worried. I shaved tonight. I wasn't sure, I'm not sure the protocol these days, but when I have a look at council, I guess that wasn't really necessary. Thank you for inviting me to speak here tonight. It is indeed my honor to speak on behalf, or to speak for, to thank Wayne for all this time with the city. Wayne started about 2 years before me at City Hall. I was in 2003. He started around 2001, and he stayed 2 years after I left. But for most of his term and for all of my time there, we worked together. And I think that'd be one thing I'd like to. You're going to hear some common themes from people tonight, but one of them would be working together, team. You heard Glenn talk about that, and I think that's one of the enduring memories I have from Wayne is his teamwork. Wayne, it was never about Wayne, it was about the team. And I certainly appreciated that approach. I think your staff appreciated it. And ultimately, I think the city's better because of it. Wayne, as has been mentioned, Wayne was, most of his time was as the city treasurer. I was trying to think, God, I don't know how many questions I asked Wayne from those budget briefing books. And how many times Wayne very professionally answered the question. Well, he was probably in the back of his mind, well, I don't know what he was thinking, but I appreciated all those, all his professionalism. When you think about Wayne's term there's words that come to mind. I think competent, capable, skillful, level-headed, bringing stability, and especially in those last 5 years, your last 5 years as city manager, I think you brought a level of stability that was very much needed at the time and very much appreciated. But I would like, the one thing I would talk about is I don't think Wayne, as a numbers guy, never got enough credit for being an ideas guy. And I just wanted to touch on a few of those. I know you said I should be brief, Your Worship, but whenever you hand a microphone to a former politician, you get what you get. So, and I wanted to talk about some of the ideas, especially that Wayne dealt with as city manager and champion. And before I start, I'll just say, of course, any project that moves forward in the city, it's never about one person. And Wayne would be the first one to tell you that. There's staff members that have worked hard on it, directors that have done tons of work on any project. Ultimately, the public buying into it and council approving it and funding it. So this is not to diminish the contributions of others, but more to highlight Wayne's leadership. Arlene touched on the downtown river precinct behind City Hall. I do think that was an important one, putting a lot of money there in our downtown core, and Wayne deserves credit. That happened under his watch, started under his watch, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. The downtown parking initiative, the free parking as we'll call it, again, there's many there that deserve credit, Dave Parsons and Brian O'Leary being two, but Wayne Ritchie's leadership, that was an issue that has been on the city plate for, well, Glenn could probably tell me, 50 years. It has to be 50 years, a constant thorn in the side of the city and downtown merchants and the public. And under Wayne's leadership, working with Dave Parsons, he managed to solve that issue. And again, it's not perfect, but I think that's one that, in partnership with the downtown merchants and the city, that's been largely solved. And that's due to Wayne's ability to get the job done. Another one that doesn't get talked about a lot is the water and sewer servicing up by the hospital. That land came into the city in the 80s. And a lot of that land, but it hasn't developed as most of us hoped it would, I think, at the time. And that's because it wasn't serviced. Under Wayne's leadership, that area now has sewer lines and water lines going in there. And you won't see the benefit of that. It'll be future generations that see the benefit of that. But it took some far-seeing leadership by council, of course, but under Wayne's leadership to get that done. And the last one I'll talk about, Arlene touched on, was City Hall. We had a building that, quite honestly, was an embarrassment. The heating didn't work, air conditioning worked, windows were single pane, the electrical system didn't work. And under Wayne's leadership, we've remodeled that City Hall into the beautiful jewel that it should be in the downtown. And if it wasn't for Wayne, many have tried before to get some movement on that file, and Wayne actually did it. And so he deserves a great deal of credit for that. So that's pretty well all I have to say. I just want to again wish Wayne all the best. Sorry, I almost forgot. I do have some prizes or some presents for you, Wayne. Whenever we get a chance to see you, I have a homecoming hat from 2007. Of course, you can make good use of that on the golf course. I've got a CD for you. I don't know if you can make that out, but it songs from the sound. So when you're just sitting at home with nothing to do, it's a CD. Somebody will have to explain to Travis and Brock what a CD is, but that will, so you can just sit around and listen to songs about Owen Sound. Now, anybody could have got you a golf shirt with the new logo on it, but not many could get you one with the old logo on it. So there's our famous old logo. Wayne, it's a nice golf shirt for you to wear on the course. And the final prize, really the shining moment, will be the Owen Sound puzzle. When you're just sitting at home twiddling your thumbs, you can put together this puzzle about and remind you of Owen Sound. I'll get those to you whenever next time I see you, Wayne. I want to thank you for your good humor throughout your time at City Hall. especially even during trying times, but especially during those trying times, that good humor and the common sense and your leadership. A well-deserved retirement, and I wish you all the best. Your worship, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. I think we've all got enough puzzles and hats to cover the next 100 city manager retirements.
We've got a few, your worship.
Thanks very much. Ms. Coulter, I think you're out there waving your hand.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's my pleasure to make a few comments on behalf of the senior management team and staff as we celebrate with Wayne his retirement later this week. Wayne has had a great career in public service to this community, one where he grew up on the east side, attended school, raised a family, played a few sports, and did a little fishing along the way. Long before Wayne became the city manager in 2015, he guided several councils and administrations through the intricacies of budget. He always made this look easy, but in advance, there were days and hours spent, in Wayne's words, ticking and bopping the numbers, always on paper. You have to have a feel for it, he would say. When Wayne became city manager, council had a keen sense of what the city needed at the time. They had a vision of strong growth and stability. Wayne challenged staff to be the best we could be. He encouraged us to be confident. He supported us. Wayne believed in staff and opportunities for professional development and encouraged us to grow and learn from each other and also from our peers across the province. He modeled respect, and that became a way of life at City Hall. Wayne was a catalyst in supporting the development team, physically locating the group in one place to better serve the development of the community. Every day, Wayne took time to walk through City Hall, usually once in the morning and once in the afternoon. Sure, he wanted people to see him and for them to see him, but he also wanted to know staff. He was truly interested in what you were working on, but also he wanted to know how you were, how your family was, what you were doing this weekend. Wayne didn't just take time to see the staff at City Hall, but he got out to works, the library and gallery, the fire department, to the park, to the facilities, and to water and the wastewater treatment plants, to meet with staff every quarter. He took time to hear from staff and always ended these meetings by saying his door was always open, and it was. At every meeting with park staff, there was a particular staff member who always asked Wayne if Own Sound was getting a Burger King. Well, we understand we're finally getting that Burger King, so Wayne, I think you may have to attend just one more parks meeting to share this good news. We'll certainly miss the sound of your happy whistling tune as you worked your way through City Hall each day. One of the important roles of city administration is to improve operational effectiveness and efficiency. In 2016, Wayne led our administration and council through a thorough service review. This exercise achieved operational efficiencies and saved the taxpayer over $800,000 on the bottom line. This project also marked a new beginning in engaging with the public. Wayne is a financial guy at heart, but he supported projects that he believed made this city a better place. Wayne was the driving force behind the decision of council to extend servicing in the East City. This is critical moving forward to achieve the growth council envisioned. Wayne believed in the need for City Hall in the downtown and also in the upgrade to the accessibility building systems and a complete modernization of this building that will serve the public and staff well for the next 50 years. Wayne was a true advocate for the downtown river precinct, believing it was one of the many ways the city could support a vibrant and changing downtown core. Wayne's support for infrastructure that went beyond linear infrastructure to parks and our soft services became evident in budgets. Wayne trusted us with a risky Are You Most marketing campaign that won a provincial EDCO award in the Innovative Community category. Wayne believed in partnerships and worked hard to lead staff in creating lasting relationships with so many groups and organizations. He often reminded us as a partner, it always meant being the bigger person and sometimes doing more than our share, especially when the community benefit was huge. Our partnership with the Own Sound DIA is a new chapter. Complimentary business-sponsored parking is a huge win for downtown businesses and solved an issue that had dogged the downtown for years. Wayne reminded us that partnerships help the city do more, leveraging our assets into projects that were much bigger and better than we could do on our own. Wayne led our communication effort on the Downtown River Precinct. This was going to be our testing ground for a much larger and broader communication effort that would be required to take a 100-year-old traffic pattern in the downtown and turn it on its ear while at the same time removing a lot of parking. He supported creativity, consulting with our partners, and demanded excellence in our execution of the communication effort. It paid off with a relatively smooth transition as the bridge was removed last fall. I also want to say Wayne was the executive producer of the popular YouTube series, Digging with Dennis. Wayne was a leader, never being afraid to make what may be a tough or unpopular decision and to take responsibility for that decision. Through the last several weeks, as we've navigated the uncharted waters of the global pandemic, Wayne took decisive action, often in advance of provincial orders, to keep our residents and staff safe. Wayne has taught us many tips and tricks. Did you know that a practiced golf swing helps thinking, and many problems have been tackled while working on the perfect swing? Wayne, you have been an inspiration to us all. I would like to thank you personally for the support you have given me over the last 5 years as our city manager. A quote Wayne has used a few times: "Don't tell me what you value, show me your budget, and I'll tell you what you value." Wayne, looking at your retirement budget, I know there will be budget lines for family, fishing, and golf. All the best. Coffee's still at 10.
Great, thanks, Pam. Wayne, on behalf of our current council, we want to thank you for your services to the city. I think I've got this right. So you started off at Ward Millette in accounting, then went to the On Sound owned PUC. Then when it wound down, came into the financial department, then to treasurer, then to director of corporate services. It might have been the same job with a different title, or it might have been a step up. Then to city manager, which isn't bad for a hometown kid. I went through, and I think you are the only On Sound born city manager we've had for at least 50 years. I went back to Bill Clark and others. Went on to the OMB, Bedford Ball, all from out of town. So it's pretty interesting. I met with Wayne about 5 years ago, trying to go someplace to have a quick discussion. We ended up at McDonald's. Wayne came in prepared with, he could tell me everything positive that a previous city manager had done that he had worked with and how it worked and what didn't work, and laid it all out with me that night with what he wanted to do, where he wanted to go, and he had a plan from that very first meeting of how to stabilize staff, stabilize the city, and move it forward. So, and you've stuck to that. I'm probably going to repeat some of the things that others have said, but there's a number of things that you've moved forward, the city's moved forward while you've been city manager, that I'm convinced would not have happened without you. And Pam's just hitting that, Jim hit on that. Certainly the stability of our senior management and our entire staff after you became city manager. We completed the infrastructure at Sydenham Heights that wouldn't have happened. We found a way to work with On Sound Housing to help support affordable housing, even though it's not quite in our mandate. But we found a way to make it work and keep those affordable housing coming to On Sound. You've supported our fire chief and advanced council's objectives in managing our fire services and budgets. Removed parking meters from downtown and reorganizing the DIA. Advanced the river precinct upgrades, which has been mentioned. Supported culture in the art gallery, and that's probably greatly overlooked with some of the projects you've been working on. Certainly infrastructure replacement, the upgrades at Harrison Park, which may not have happened otherwise, were badly needed. We have increased our each year our budget, put more money into infrastructure capital funding, partly spending and partly into reserves to try and build those nest eggs that are needed as we replace things. And we didn't do a very good job of that prior to you being around. Certainly, you changed the relationship with some of our developers, gave them confidence to invest in Owen Sound. We didn't have that. So that's not a bad list. And I didn't even mention City Hall service review. I missed that. Are you most mentioned? Certainly on too. That's phenomenal in only 5 years because as we know, to get together with the public post-COVID. I feel like I'm at the Academy Awards. My music's getting me played off. I'm about to get pulled off the stage. We look forward to meeting with you once the post-COVID occurs and we can get out together and celebrate your successes in a more social event. We wish you and Darlene long and healthy retirement. And again, thank you so much for everything you've done. Now the microphone goes to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks to the callers in and Pamela. Funny, I'm the only one who seems to have aged in this last 20 years, but this Wayne, he's quite a guy. I should meet him sometime. I'd like to thank 6 councils that I worked for, including the current one. I'd like to thank the hundreds of city staff, employees, fellow employees that I've worked for. In those groups, there were some real characters. I won't even begin to start to mention them because I'll forget some, but they certainly know who they are. Enjoyed it all. Would love to do it again, but I'm not going to. I'll see you in the golf course, Glenn. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thanks, Wayne. Thanks, Glenn, Jim, Arlene. Thanks for coming in. Pam, you're going to stay though, okay? The rest of you can escape if you wish to, or you can, sit and watch the whole movie, bad movie, horror movie, the whole council meeting. Thank you very much.
Jim, you have to stay and explain CDs to Travis and I.
On to the agenda. At number 8, we have no public meetings. At number 9, we have no deputations. Public question period. Bloomfield didn't receive any today. At number 11, we have correspondence received for which direction of council is required. Cover the details of it. So it is a letter from Owen Sound Municipal Nonprofit Housing thanking Mr. Ritchie and wishing him all the best for everything that he has done and helped them with their rebuilds and additions over the last number of years.
Worship and move acceptance.
Okay, so I'm going to go through either in favor or opposed. Councillor Dodd.
Favor.
Councillor Gregg.
In favor.
Councillor Hamley.
In favor.
Councillor Kepke.
In favor.
Councillor Merton.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
In favor.
Councillor Tamming. And Councillor Thomas.
In favor.
That's carried. Thank you. We're down to number 12 on the agenda, which is reports from city staff, 12A being a report from city manager with regard to city actions and decisions implemented on COVID-19 since April 28th. Go ahead, Wayne.
Thank you, Your Worship. Certainly, our actions have decreased quite significantly. We held 2 meetings of the Emergency Operations Control Group. We've continued to make some administrative changes that you will approve tonight. Nothing really significant. I can tell you all of our staff are very much looking forward to opening business up again as normal. I think council is, like all of our public is, we're watching very closely, and I think we're close. We're not quite there yet. I certainly looks forward to being able to open this city up again very shortly, and I'm confident we will. So that's all on that report, Your Worship.
I don't have any questions, but I'd move receipt of the report.
Does anyone in council out there have any questions? Hearing none. In favor or opposed to accepting that report or approving that report, Councillor Dodd?
In favor.
Councillor Gregg?
In favor.
Councillor Hamley?
In favor.
Councillor Kepke?
In favor.
Councillor Merton?
Favor.
Deputy Mayor O'Leary?
In favor.
Councillor Tamming? Councillor Thomas?
In favor.
So that is carried. We're down to 12B, which is Manager of Community and Development and Marketing with regard to impact and COVID city events. You're presenting that, Pam?
Thank you, Worship. Council at your last meeting had requested a staff report respecting events. On April 27th, the province did announce a 3-stage framework for reopening the province. There are no timelines attached specifically to that framework. One of the areas most impacted by the current pandemic are public gatherings. In 2020, Council had budgeted and planned for 8 public events. The events assistant has created a matrix for city events to do all the event planning. Decisions are required a minimum of 30 days in advance. Any discussion of events is really irrelevant if the provincial context does not change with social distancing or social interactions of more than 5 people being restricted. However, thinking optimistically and looking forward to stage 2 of the provincial framework, it does contemplate some larger public gatherings. The first chart in the report really outlines the event, the date, the anticipated attendance, the budget, and then a decision framework or that date that we need to make a decision by. So considering those things, Canada Day and Harborfest, we're recommending that Council cancel both of those events as they have been planned and begin to plan a larger event in late August or early September, providing that restrictions are lifted and we can work within those guidelines. This will require some sort of monitoring and continuing to watch this as we move forward. In terms of Harbor Nights, these are smaller crowds and they provide a better opportunity to potentially hold these events while adhering to restrictions and cautions. What we're recommending is that we would allow staff to monitor the progress provincially and adjust accordingly in consultation with our local public health unit. A July 5th start may be too early, but we may be able to have a shortened outdoor Harbor Nights concert series. Outdoor movie nights, we're recommending a similar approach. These happen 3 nights in August, and we're recommending that we sort of hold and allow staff to monitor provincial progress. I would note that there was extra funding this year for Canada Day, acknowledging it's also a special celebration of the city's 100th anniversary. And we also received additional word from the federal government that the funding for Canada Day has been amended to allow it to be used before March of 2021. So that does provide some flexibility. So the recommendation is, Your Worship, that you would receive the report, that you would approve the cancellation of Canada Day on July 1st and Harborfest on July 11th, that you would ask us to begin looking at planning an event late summer or early fall with input from our local medical officer of health in the province of Ontario, and that we would sort of postpone Harbor Nights and monitor both Harbor Nights and outdoor movie nights until further details are made available on restrictions with respect to public gatherings.
Thank you. Councillor Dodd.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple questions through you, Pam. Regarding Canada Day, are the fireworks, do we have to prepay for any of those expenses? Is there anything in the contract that allows us not to do it on July 1st to hold off on that? Regarding Harborfest, did we already have to prepay any of those musical acts? Anything like that?
Through you, Your Worship, the timelines outlined where we've talked about the decision framework are intended to minimize or eliminate any deposits or financial impacts to the city. So at this time, we still have time to cancel the fireworks for July 1st. If council wanted that to be part of a fall celebration, a late summer celebration, that may be possible. But at this time, we don't have deposits that we will lose.
Great to hear. Thank you. I would be in favor of removing, Canada Day and Harborfest. But I'm also unsure if I'm okay with just doing a rescheduling of those 2 events. I would love to see fireworks at some point But I think also on a PR situation, I would not want to would not want to be the city that opens up for a live festival at the end and we catch a second wave of something. I would much rather use those funding for a public event. Maybe it's a firework event. We still tell everyone to do a social or physical distancing during that period. And then saving those funds, earmarking those funds into 2021, or allocating those into another program regarding, small business or whatever we're going to be looking into. I just have some concerns about delaying and just saying we're going to do an event again in late August or early September, when we do not have a known idea of what's going on currently in the situation, when we could probably use those funds for another project.
I've been there.
That's Brock. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I kind of was hinting at this 2 weeks ago, and I read this report again and thought more about it this afternoon. I just think that out of all of the things that we have to balance for the rest of the year, I don't believe that events are a good use of staff time and city resources in 2020. I do want to hear what other councillors have to say, but I do have a motion, Your Worship.
I want to hold on to that. Councillor Gregg waving his hand around. Go ahead, Scott.
Thanks, everybody. My comments will quite echo Councillor Dodd's. The jumping out at me, the only event that I would still be interested in looking at would be the fireworks. It's a feel good. It's a feel great. It's not a feel good. It's such a terrific night. I would question whether even Civic Day is feasible. So Labor Day, but I'm not in favor of. It's very unfortunate, but we have to realize it is what it is, and act, I think, in a manner in which many other businesses, commercial institutions, industrial facilities are operating in, and that's the context that this is to stay with us for the foreseeable future. I don't think it's wise for us to move forward with placing resources into looking at one particular enhanced celebration. That's not something I'm supportive of. If there was a mechanism that we can look at fireworks perhaps on Labor Day, because the firework funding was a Canada grant funding trickle down, and I'm very much in favor or aligned with Councillor Dodd in placing those much needed funds in reserve at this time to evaluate future programs, because I think there's a greater need, whether it's tax issues for establishments or what, but I think that's a better use of those funds.
Thank you. Councillor Merton.
Your Worship, I would ask that we go back to the intent of these celebration events. And are there options we could consider using technology, putting something on the website that allows the city and the residents to still acknowledge and celebrate Canada Day and offer an opportunity for people to contribute? This is a challenging time for everyone. This could be used as a creative opportunity to draw our community together, just in a different way. And I'm wondering if we could go back to the rationale for why we're doing this and consider some creative options that would still allow us to celebrate safely.
Great. Thank you. Are there any other councillors that haven't spoken to it yet?
Richard, Your Worship.
Go ahead, Councillor Thomas.
Well, I'm going to take the opposing view in some ways on this, because I think that, we've all spent the last 2 months locked in our homes, getting to know our families a lot better, which has been beautiful. But I think that there comes a point when you celebrate surviving, not your family, but coronavirus. I think that, if there was ever a year that we need to find some way to celebrate, this is the year. It's not time to hide and continue hiding. It's not time to roll up the shutters, lock the doors, turn off the lights, and wait for it to blow over. I think the report we've been presented here with tonight takes a fairly balanced look at things. Staff is suggesting we keep some of these items in the budget, and they're already committed in the budget. Keep these items in the budget, so if it's possible, we can celebrate at some point this year. If it's not possible, and I fully trust staff to consult with us and the appropriate authorities, then that money will still be available at year's end when we come into the next budget process. It's not going to go anywhere in the meantime. But I would really encourage council to just sit back for a minute and take a look at this, because if there was ever a year that this community needs some kind of a celebration, this is the year.
Thanks. Anyone else who hasn't spoken? Deputy Mayor O'Leary, see your hand up.
Thank you, Worship. I'm 100% with Councillor Thomas, and I think Councillor Merton made a very good point. I don't think any of us have the ability to guess at what we can do or what we can't do in September or the end of August or any time in the future. We're all glued to the television to see what the Premier is going to come up with next on a daily basis. So I think we should just, things are in the budget. Let's just carry on and just get a feel for things as we move forward. Because once we open things up, people are absolutely starving for something. And, in Councillor Merton's words, we can be creative. We have staff that are creative, and that's what I'd be looking forward to. Thank you.
Councillor Kepke and Councillor Tamming, I think, are the only ones I haven't heard from if they wish to speak to it.
Councillor Kepke here. I'll say a few things. I'm of two minds, a little bit apprehensive on jumping forward and spending money when in the end we may need to cancel something. However, I know this community needs a little bit of something to bring it back together. I'd like the idea of putting a few things on hold and finding out what's happening provincially until we make those decisions. And I certainly am happy to hear that at some point this year, we will be able to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the corporation of the City of Owen Sound. So I'm of two minds.
Thanks. And Councillor Tamming, is there anything you wanted to add?
Share many of the sentiments councillors. I think it's premature. I'm with Councillor Kepke. I just think it's premature to make what I think Owen Sound would love. One party, perhaps in October, if that's late enough, not too snowy, and spectacular with what that. It ought to be a standalone celebration that perhaps absorbs the budgets of what might go in events. And I would urge Ms. Coulter, for instance, to think lines and give us.
If I can just speak to it before we go forward, the only thing that I'm hearing that you want to do something and that we'll just leave the money in the budget. And that it has been budgeted. At the same point, we had $600 and something thousand of capital projects budgeted for this year that last week we heard we weren't likely to get to because we are dealing with $1 million shortfall on COVID. So this is something that, yes, it was budgeted just like those capital things, but if we don't spend the money, it would reduce the shortfall of our COVID hit was the other possibility. I'm going to go back to Councillor Hamley, who said he had a motion.
Yeah, that in consideration of staff report CS 20051 and the provincial reopening framework, City Council 1, receive the report. 2, direct staff to cancel the Canada Day event on July 1st, Harborfest on July 11th, Harbor Nights and outdoor movie nights. 3, direct staff not to plan one event in late summer or early fall 2020. And 4, place surplus funds in reserve.
Great, so that's the motion. Council discussion to that motion now that it's on the floor. Councillor Dodd.
Thank you, Worship. I would probably not support the motion on the floor. I do believe that the smaller events, and we're looking at the Harbor Nights and the outdoor movie nights that can be placed on hold that don't have as many, I think, restrictions on the social distancing, physical distancing. My biggest concern, no matter what situation we're in, is that we're not going to be able to be in a facility that's going to allow 4,000 people, not just locals, but tourists that are coming into our region in late July or August or September. That's my concern. If it's at Harbor Nights and we have 300 or 400 people, we could have staff out there and probably try to get someone to socially distance or physically distance, just like they would take their own responsibilities when they're at the grocery store. My concern is those larger events. I wouldn't want to say I would necessarily want to cancel those Harbor Nights for outdoor movie nights yet. I would still be okay with putting those on hold. My concern is just in this next 6 months, I don't think we're going to be having an event, and I think if we are having it, I think proper measures need to be in place, where I don't think we should be having 5,000 people. That's my thought. So unfortunately, Mr. Hamley, I would not support that motion.
Other councillors? Councillor Gregg.
Thanks, everybody. I think it's fair to say that there's not one councillor that doesn't have an equal appreciation of how great some of these events are. Like Harbor Nights is an absolute joy to sit on my deck if I'm not there, even just to hear the music flowing through the downtown. It's wonderful. I will support the motion because our municipal finances have absolutely been shredded in the last 8 weeks and will continue to be shredded for the foreseeable future. As the mayor indicated, we're looking at other events where we have to put them off to try to mitigate the financial damage from this. It's no different than many business people operating their own businesses in own sound, whether it's a rapid decrease in your expenditures in advertising or media outlay, cost containment. This is exactly what it is. It's not anybody not appreciating these events more so than anyone else. We all have an equal great appreciation of these, but I will support the motion because we have to evaluate where we are from a financial standpoint at this point, and it's not good.
Others? Deputy Mayor O'Leary, see your hand going up.
Your Worship, I think just from what Councillor Gregg just said is the reason why I would be opposed to this motion. I'd like to maybe hear from Kate to see if we're going to have an updated look at what our finances look like. To Your Worship's point of being down $1 million, we don't even know what we're going to end up being down. I just can't see the point in making decisions, financial decisions, to make up for something we don't even know what it's going to end up at. And we don't even know what the government's going to do when it's all said and done. Maybe they're going to come, probably not, but maybe they're going to come and say our municipality gets another $650,000. I don't know that. But if they did come back and give us more money, and we went ahead and made these decisions ahead of time, I think I'd feel pretty silly. So I don't want my name on that. I'm opposed to that motion.
Ms. Allen, do you want to speak to that?
Only that I plan to bring a financial update to our next meeting.
Okay, other councillors? Councillor Merton, I see your hand up.
Through your worship, what we're really talking about is a concept of health and wellness in a decision making in an emergency situation. Health and wellness and mental support for our residents, and it's a delicate balance between the two. Is it possible that we could amend the motion to ask for staff to come back with alternate suggestions that would meet the strategic direction that we have for these events, but consider it in a different manner and or a different financial outlay? that keeps our residents safe while still celebrating our city.
Not exactly sure about that, but from listening to the conversation that we've had so far, I would amend my motion, Your Worship. On item 2, I would remove harbor nights and outdoor movie nights from being canceled.
Thank you. Does everyone understand that? Clerk, you understand that? Okay, Councillor O'Leary, or sorry, Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
I think I'm just trying to remember what the motion was, but there was something in there about not wanting staff to come up with more events, and that's the one that I want to happen. I want to keep moving forward here. I just want to remind council, it's May 11th. It's May 11th, and we're about to pull the plug on something that's going to happen in August, September. Like none of us have the ability to do that.
Before we vote on the motion, I'm going to get it read back. But any other councillors wish to speak at this time? Councillor Dodd.
Thank you, Worship. Just to go back to Councillor Merton's comments regarding another event, and maybe Councillor Merton can give some clarification. Are you thinking maybe of doing like, or suggesting an online, you get some local band or local artists to do some music that we've seen on CBC for some fundraisers? Is that kind of the line that you're thinking, Councillor Merton?
Absolutely. We have such a creative marketing team, and I'm sure the public would participate if we wanted to have a survey of what, ask the people who receive the services we provide, what would matter to you? What could you suggest in these times? And see what comes back. But absolutely, I do believe that we need to celebrate the events in a safe way and be creative and open to ideas. Online is absolutely an option, but there could be other solutions as well.
I'm going to get Brock's motion read and then call the question on that, and then depending what happens, we can move from there.
Through your worship, I have that in consideration of staff report CS 20051 and the provincial policy framework for reopening, City Council receives the report, approves the cancellation of Canada Day events and Harborfest, directs staff to not reschedule events for late summer, early fall, and place funds that were earmarked for these events into reserves.
Everyone understands it?
That's for a recorded vote on this.
Yes. Go ahead.
Councillor Dodd.
In favor?
Councillor Gregg.
In favor?
Councillor Hamley.
In favor?
Councillor Kepke.
Opposed?
Councillor Merton.
Opposed?
Councillor Tamming. Councillor Tamming.
Opposed?
Councillor Thomas. Sorry, was that opposed?
Opposed.
Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
Opposed.
Mayor Body.
In favor.
The resolution is defeated with 4 in favor and 5 opposed.
So we need another motion to.
Your worship, I'd move the resolution as presented in the staff report.
Thank you. Going for a recorded vote again.
Please.
That was a please. He said yes.
Councillor Dodd.
Opposed?
Councillor Gregg.
Opposed?
Councillor Hamley.
Opposed?
Councillor Kepke.
In favor.
Excuse me, Madam. Point of order.
Go ahead. Go ahead, John. You've got a question?
I apologize. Can the motion be read again? I'm sorry, I'm just thinking.
John, it's the motion that's presented on the minutes for you to read. So it's the one that was in the report that you should have on your screen. Does that help?
Okay, good.
Okay.
Okay, so I have Councillor Kepke is in favor. Councillor Merton,
Opposed?
Councillor Tamming, Councillor Thomas,
In favor?
Deputy Mayor O'Leary,
In favor.
Mayor Body.
Opposed.
The resolution is defeated with 4 in favor and 5 opposed.
I would suggest that we table it to next meeting. We'll be able to explore other ideas maybe. By that point, we might have different information from the province. Councillor Gregg?
Thanks, everybody. I would make a motion to table this till following the budgetary update that we are to receive at the May 25th council meeting.
Your worship,
Hearing from somebody.
may I comment on that?
Councillor Kepke, go ahead.
Do we not need a decision on the Canada Day and Harbor Fest now, prior to our next council meeting?
Through you, your worship, the decision timeline for those events are June 1st and June 11th. So the meeting on the 25th would be enough time to do cancellations for Canada Day and Harbor Fest.
We also ask if staff are coming back, we're tabling this, if staff could come back with some creative ideas such as Councillor Merton suggested.
Through you, your worship, with respect, certainly staff can do that. However, in the absence of a framework from the province about what events may look like in stage 2, it's difficult to plan anything at this time, without that information. So I don't want to say no, it might not be at the next meeting, but we could certainly prepare it when we have that framework.
Thank you.
Anyone else in council? Speaking a little bit out of turn, one of the things that I thought was going to come up that I was looking for was moving fireworks to the fall, and still, if we weren't in one place, figuring out how to be able to do that safely. And that was one of the things that I thought would come up in the discussion and didn't. So perhaps inappropriately, I'm just going to throw that out as being another thought that we could maybe also look at before we come back. But we've got a motion right now to table it to the next meeting to review it. Going to call the question either in favor or opposed. Councillor Dodd?
In favor.
Councillor Gregg?
In favor.
Councillor Hamley?
In favor.
Councillor Kepke?
Favor?
Councillor Merton?
In favor?
Deputy Mayor O'Leary?
In favor.
Councillor Tamming? Back to Councillor Tamming in a minute. Councillor Thomas?
In favor?
Councillor Tamming, are you? I think his internet's working out there. Councillor Tamming, can you hear us? We'll move on. Oh, in favor. Good. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
We're down to 12C, which is Director of Corporate Services with regard to water and wastewater rates. Alan.
Thank you, Your Worship. In late 2019, Council engaged Hempson Consulting to complete a water and wastewater rate study in order to meet the requirements of the financial planning and sustainable provision of services under the Safe Water Drinking Act. This will also provide the foundation for our rate increases in 2020. Early on this year, we were presented with a high-level presentation focusing on the history of our water and wastewater rate services, a summary of our current infrastructure and future capital plans, as well as known customer data. Earlier tonight at a special meeting of council, Hemson presented the results of this study. Using the data provided, including the forecasted capital plan, current reserve balances, and future revenue estimates, Hemson has determined the rates required to maintain a fully self-funded and sustainable system. The recommended increase for 2020 through 2030 of 5% on water rates and maintaining the wastewater surcharge at 1.24 through 2023 before it can be progressively decreased to 1.1 by 2030. And I would like to say in normal circumstances, I would bring forward a report recommending the rate increases that were suggested and analyzed and recommended by Hemson. However, in light of the current pressures that the city recognizes are felt by our ratepayers during the COVID pandemic, I did go back to Hemson towards the end of their analysis and asked them to provide an alternate scenario contemplating a reduced increase in 2020 and a 0% increase, making it 0%, excuse me. In order to accomplish this, staff have reviewed the water and wastewater capital programs for 2020 and recognized several projects that could be deferred, including $620,000 in water capital and $229,000 of wastewater capital. So there are some implications to moving forward with a recommendation of 0%, and that is that some of these projects aren't going to be done this year. That doesn't mean that the projects don't need to be done. They are being deferred to next year, and it will have somewhat of a domino effect through our capital program. In the model that Hemson provided, they suggested that in order to end in the same place in 2030, that would ultimately mean almost a 6% increase next year. With taking on a 0% increase this year, I don't want council to feel like you're bound to that future increase. Staff will certainly reassess what our capital plans are going forward, but those are the efforts that we can undertake now in order to maintain a 0% increase in this fiscal year. Council also has the prerogative to choose any increase. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at some rate between 0 and 5, which is the rate recommended by Hemson. In addition, in order to react to the COVID situation, later on we have a tax policy bylaw that talks about payment terms and sort of how that can defer a liability for interest and penalty on payments that maybe take a little bit longer. In order to recognize the same sort of relief within water, the report does recommend that we approve increased due dates on water and wastewater bills to 36 days from their current 21 days. So that's adding an additional 15 days. And effectively, that's waiving interest and penalty for that same period. And I would recommend that that stay in effect until our next rate increase is brought forward to council, which would be this time next year.
Thank you. We need a motion first. Greg?
Well, if I could ask a question.
Maybe first, okay.
Your worship. Kate, last week I was watching, I think his name's Jim Fish, CEO of Waste Management, and he obviously leads an extremely large company, and they were evaluating the COVID effects to Waste Management's revenue streams, one of which significant one is schools. 15% of their general revenues are school driven, and schools are closed. So I'm considering that kind of an outlook here. We've got a lot of significant users of our water system who are not going to be generating the same kind of volume billing over 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months here. The additional 15 days of waiving interest, I guess, is something that I'm somewhat against. The federal government, the provincial government have been working hard on programs to effectively support individuals who have been somewhat trapped by this predicament. Why the extra 15 days, and how wrong is it to not deviate from the 21 days?
Go ahead.
It's not wrong. So as an emergency measure, council will recall, I believe it was in the first COVID update from the city manager, we noted that for the period April, May, and June, we're waiving all penalty and interest payments. And so that's in effect till the end of June, after which we would otherwise return to our regular payment terms. So this deferral of due date sort of is an in-between. We're not waiving all penalty and interest. We're waiving that on current balances for an extra 15 days. Anything that's overdue, however, would continue to accrue penalty and interest during that time. And it just sort of matches some of the policy recommended in the tax bylaw report that I have coming forward later tonight, which also recommends deferring due dates. So just trying to maintain that theme was my goal, but I would say that's your prerogative.
Further? Not this time. Okay, we've still got a motion there. Sir Dodd?
I'll move the motion.
Sir Dodd has moved the motion. Other comments, discussion, council, questions? Please go ahead and speak if there's anything. I'm not able to see hands, so. Okay, I'm hearing nothing, so I'm going to call the question either in favor or opposed to the motion, which is what was recommended. Councillor Dodd?
In favor.
Councillor Gregg?
Opposed?
Councillor Hamley?
In favor.
Councillor Kepke?
In favor.
Councillor Merton?
In favor.
Deputy Mayor O'Leary? Councillor Tamming?
In favor?
Thanks. Councillor Thomas?
In favor.
There we go. So that's carried. So that was 12C. 12D, we're down to Director of Public Works and Engineering with regard to garbage bag tags. Mr. Kafalis.
Thank you, Your Worship. With the declaration of the state of emergency by the province and subsequently by the city, it became evident that the city had to make some hard decisions to deal with COVID-19. One of these decisions was to authorize a temporary relaxation of the mandatory requirement to use bag tags on all garbage bags in an effort to promote physical distancing, thus eliminating the need for residents to make special trips from their homes to purchase bag tags. On average, the city sells $30,000 in bag tags on a monthly basis. This has lost revenues that are creating significant hardship for the city. During this time, we've also noticed a significant increase in tipping fees associated with residents putting out larger amounts of garbage, thus increasing the hardship. This raised concerns about how much longer the city could continue to waive bag tag fees. Staff has given this issue a great deal of thought and have determined that the mechanisms are in place to allow residents to obtain and purchase bag tags safely. Some vendors provide delivery services, others have curbside pickup. As such, as well, staff has topped up all vendors or have ensured vendors have ample supplies to meet the purchasing needs. As such, staff is requesting City Council to direct staff to bring forward a bylaw to reinstate the regular bag tag policy.
Mr. Kafalis. So I see that there's 3 options that are there. Just to be clear, the recommendation is option number 3.
That is correct. That is correct, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Gregg.
Your Worship.
Go ahead.
Here, I'm pleased to move on.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we hear you. Perfect. Thank you. Councillor Tamming has moved option 3. Discussion. Any councillors wish to discuss that? Hearing none, I'll call the question. In favor or opposed? Go ahead, Councillor Tamming.
Last count, I'm pleased to see operations. It was mentioned, but it is $1,000 a month.
Thank you. Okay, so in favor, opposed, Councillor Dodd.
Favor.
Councillor Gregg.
In favor.
Councillor Hamley.
In favor.
Councillor Kepke.
In favor.
Councillor Merton.
Opposed.
Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
In favor.
Councillor Tamming. Councillor Thomas.
In favor.
Okay, I'm going to go back, try Councillor Tamming again. No, we're not picking you up.
In favor.
Okay, there we go.
Favor.
Carried. Thank you. 12E from Director of Corporate Services, Tax Policy. Go ahead, Kate.
Your Worship, this report has a recommendation that Council directs staff to bring forward the property tax bylaw to authorize the collection of taxes effective July 1st. In most years, the final tax bylaw is brought forward subsequent to tax policy without further report. In light of some specific COVID-related amendments to what our typical tax bylaw looks like, it is being brought forward for Council direction. Council approved the 2020 operating and capital budget on January 27th, and the municipal levy for 2020 is $30,810,225. In February, Corporate Services recommended approval of the 2020 tax ratios, and Council will recall that you've approved a reduction in the commercial, multi-residential, and equalized industrial ratios while still maintaining a combined increase to the residential taxpayer of 1.82%. This represents an estimated increase of $68 to the typical single detached home. I will point out that since that date, Grey County has reduced their farm tax ratio from 0.24 to 0.21. That will have a nominal impact on the city's share of the county levy. Because we have fewer farm tax properties, that will shift some of the county burden onto the city. However, it shouldn't make a significant impact. In March 2020, the city declared a state of emergency, and as part of efforts to provide relief and improve the safety of our ratepayers, Council ratified the decision to temporarily waive penalty and interest on all city balances due for April, May, and June. And finally, since declaring a state of emergency, both Grey County and the province have deferred the collection of interim education and county levies to September and December, respectively. So our bylaw has been modified to recommend a few changes due to COVID. First of all, the deferral of final due dates to September 30th and December 15th. Normally, final taxes are due in June and September. However, in order to pass on the benefit of the deferred provincial and county payments to the ratepayer, we are recommending that we defer our final due dates for 2020. We've added language to give Council the authority to defer the application of penalty and interest in a declared emergency. That being said, with the deferral of final due date, staff are recommending that waiving penalty and interest will cease on June 30th. So penalty and interest will go back into effect for those months, July and forward. And finally, not included in this bylaw are longer-term or rebate-type relief programs. At this time, staff anticipate that these types of programs may be created at the provincial level to be administered by senior levels of government. We're not expecting to see any of these programs until the end of the emergency is known and the impacts and the needs of ratepayers across the province have been analyzed and quantified. Future updates on this type of program or communication will be provided to Council. The budget implication waiving penalty and interest averages about $25,000 per month, and deferring due dates will effectively waive penalty and interest on current balances, so we will still see some of that lost revenue, but not the full amount. And there are also costs of borrowing associated with deferring tax due dates, such as cash flows are compromised, requiring the city to utilize their line of credit. The interest rate on that is 1.7%, and assuming that a quarter of the total levy must be borrowed for 6 months, we're estimating an interest cost of about $35,000 for each 3-month period as a result of those deferred due dates. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Motions? Dodd?
Thank you, Worship. We'll move the recommendation.
Discussion, councillors? Nothing, any questions for Ms. Allen? Seeing none, no comment, none. Hearing none, going to call the question. In favor or opposed, Councillor Dodd?
In favor.
Councillor Gregg?
In favor.
Councillor Hamley?
In favor.
In favor?
Councillor Merton,
In favor?
Mayor O'Leary,
In favor.
Mr. Tamming, Mr. Thomas.
In favor.
That's carried. We're down to 12F. This is a report with regard to the attack hockey team. Deputy Mayor O'Leary has declared a pecuniary interest on that, so he'll be on by now probably. Who's presenting?
I will, Your Worship.
Thank you.
So the recommendation is that in consideration of staff report respecting a request by the Owen Sound Attack Hockey Club, that council directs the 2020 base lease be reduced by $6,882 to reflect the elimination of 3 regular home games from the 2019-2020 season. As council will be aware, we unfortunately had to close the rink to public use on March 13th, and the attack had lost 3 games. Mr. Fisher and I met with representatives of the ownership group and arrived at this reduction of roughly 8%. We feel it's fair to all parties, Your Worship.
Want to move it? Councillor Craig, moving it?
Yeah, I've got no questions on it, so I'll move the recommendation as it is.
Okay, any other councillors have any questions, any comments? Go ahead, Councillor Dodd.
Thank you, Worship. Just a quick question. When those 3 games, were they canceled because of our use, or was it canceled because of the OHL canceled the season?
Through Your Worship, ultimately, I suppose had the OHL decided they could continue the season, we would try to accommodate them. Obviously, as we know, we now have the health unit in there, or sorry, the hospital. So we probably would not be able to accommodate them even if the OHL had ramped their season.
My only concern is when we're discussing this is one user who's renting space from the city facility. And I think this also sets a precedent on other users who are renting our facilities. If you're going to give it to the Owen Sound Attack, then what about the Harrison Park Inn? What about the other facility users? So have we had any negotiations with any of our other tenants?
Through Your Worship, we've spoken to several of our tenants. We have said, obviously, council representing the ratepayer would be more than fair with them. So we're not requesting payments be made while they are closed to business. I think we need to remember those residents also on those facilities pay full taxation. There will be no rebate on those taxations. They maintain those properties for us. Should they abandon them, we would be maintaining them, et cetera. But in the end, as always our mantra with our tenants, we want to be fair with them and fair with the ratepayer. So that's what has been communicated to them. We want to make sure these businesses, like all downtown businesses with Owen Sound, come back stronger than ever.
Thank you, Wayne. As long as we're painting all of our with the same brush, then I'll be in favor.
Okay. Anyone else? Councillor Merton?
Your Worship, I just have a question for Kate. As we move through this COVID situation, are we actually keeping track of the lost revenues or potential revenues? Should we be in a fortunate situation that the government, provincial or federal, may offer us some assistance? It seems that in different sectors, some amounts are larger, some are smaller, but they're all COVID related. And I'm wondering if we're moving forward with keeping some sort of a tracking sheet in case we have the opportunity to submit and regain. I know it may be optimistic, but I remain hopeful.
Through you, Your Worship, we do have a separate set of accounts set up for COVID-specific expenses. As far as variances in revenue, comparing to prior years to come up with an estimate for how much was COVID-related impact is certainly something we can undertake in any of our financial accounts.
For Your Worship, I could just ask one. So this particular issue, it's lost revenue because and it's directly related to setting up a base hospital. Would that be included, Kate, within your separate set of accounts?
If and when a provincial program is announced that could potentially fund, we would look at what the eligibility criteria are, and certainly if this fell within it, it would be able to be quantified and submitted.
Else have any questions? Seeing none, I will call the questions. So in favor, opposed, Councillor Dodd.
In favor.
Councillor Gregg.
In favor.
Councillor Hamley.
In favor.
Councillor Kepke.
In favor.
Councillor Merton.
In favor.
Oh, Deputy Mayor O'Leary has stepped out. Councillor Tamming. Councillor Thomas.
In favor.
So that is carried. So we're down to 12G. For Deputy Mayor O'Leary to come back in. He's in now. 12G is a report from planning with regard to Planning Act under Bill 189. Is that you, Ms. Coulter, presenting that?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. In the early days of the provincial emergency, the province enacted a variety of regulations, and OREG 7320 suspended certain timelines under a variety of legislation, including the Planning Act. Recognizing some unintended consequences, the province then enacted Bill 189, which allowed the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing to create regulations regarding timelines associated with the Planning Act. OREG 14920 was approved, and it applies to almost all Planning Act applications. The OREG provides options. One is that municipalities can pause planning applications. And this council at the last meeting did move forward with a rezoning. So it also allows councils to continue processing applications. We're seeing demand, we have staff capacity, and we're poised. This will allow us to be poised to continue with strong growth that we saw in 2019 when the restrictions are further removed respecting construction. There are some requirements for new notices if decisions were made between certain periods. We had 3 decisions by the Committee of Adjustment that were caught in that time frame, and those notices have been reissued. In terms of moving forward with public consultation, I think social distancing may have us rethinking public meetings. So the province has allowed municipalities to move forward with public consultation, giving municipalities autonomy to sort out the public engagement. At this time, we don't have any public meetings pending. If we do, we'll explore with the clerk's division as well as our IT staff the use of various technologies that would support public consultation and engage the public. Our website continues to be an important communication tool, Your Worship, as all relevant background studies, staff reports, and information with respect to all active planning applications are included on our website. So the recommendation is that you would receive this report respecting Bill 189 and Ontario Reg 14920, and that you would direct staff to continue processing planning applications during the provincially declared emergency and support the use of alternative methods of public consultation, including electronic and virtual methods as permitted by the OREG as needed to satisfy the requirements of the Planning Act.
Thank you. Councillor Gregg.
Everybody, I've got no questions, so I'll move the recommendation as it is there presented.
Thank you. Councillors, any questions, any comments? Hearing none, I will call the question. So in favor, opposed, Councillor Dodd.
In favor.
Councillor Gregg.
In favor.
Councillor Hamley.
In favor.
Kepke.
In favor.
Merton.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
In favor.
Councillor Tamming.
In favor.
And Councillor Thomas.
In favor.
That is carried. Down to 12H, which is planning again with regard to Helper Creek. Go ahead, Ms. Coulter.
Thank you, Worship. This report is respecting the Braymont subdivision. Council had approved an official plan amendment and zoning amendment in February of 2019. And this policy framework provides for the mixed residential development in excess of 350 lots on this property. The Planning Act does not allow for an application for a minor variance or a rezoning within 2 years of the approval of the zoning bylaw amendment, so 2 years from February of 2019, unless that application is approved by council. A request has been received on behalf of Braemont to allow the application to facilitate the construction of 3 model homes to provide for sales and marketing of this subdivision. Staff have no objection to the application. I would remind council it's not considered a pre-approval, that any application would be considered on its own merits. So, Your Worship, the recommendation is that you would receive the report, and then in consideration of the report, you would resolve to allow submissions of a Planning Act application for prior to the 2nd anniversary of the day on which the zoning amendment 2019-16 was passed and enacted.
Thank you. Councillor Dodd?
Thank you, Worship. I'd move the recommendation.
So anyone have any questions, any comments? So Pam, this 2-year limit, that was changed a couple of years ago. Planning Act, it really complicated things in a sense, hasn't it?
Through you, Your Worship, yes, it was a more recent amendment to the Planning Act.
Thank you. Yeah, put you in a spot to get an opinion on whether you like it or not. Sorry. I'm going to call the question in favor or opposed. Councillor Dodd?
In favor.
Councillor Gregg?
Favor.
Councillor Hamley?
In favor.
Councillor Kepke?
In favor.
Councillor Merton?
Favor.
Deputy Mayor O'Leary?
In favor.
Councillor Tamming? Councillor Thomas?
In favor.
That is carried. Down to 12I, Director of Corporate Services with regard to Housing Company Construction Financial Loan. Ms. Allen?
Thank you. I'll just point out, I just noticed my computer is not charging, so I might get cut at some point here this evening. That in consideration, so I'm bringing forward a report to authorize construction financing to the Owen Sound Housing Company. And the recommendation is that in consideration of this report, council directs staff to bring forward a bylaw authorizing the mayor and clerk to sign a loan agreement with the Owen Sound Housing Corporation. The Owen Sound Housing Corporation has acquired property on the east side of the city and has submitted a proposed site plan to build 90 residential units. The first and second phase have been completed, and a third phase is now being contemplated. The Owen Sound Housing Company has requested that the City of Owen Sound assist with construction financing in the amount of $3,125,000, which will be advanced upon the signing of the loan agreement and at the request of the housing company, which will be repaid in full plus interest when long-term financing is finalized upon completion of the third phase. It is anticipated funds will be required in March of 2021 and will be repaid by October of 2021. It should be noted that this loan is unsecured so long as the city is not registered on title of the land. A similar arrangement was made to provide financing to the Owen Sound Housing Corporation in 2017 and again in 2019. Council approved the advance of that amount as reported in report CM 17011. The 2019 loan was ultimately not required, and the advancement was never requested by the Owen Sound Housing Company. So as of right now, the outstanding balance is only related to the 2017 loan, and there is currently $720,000 outstanding on an original loan balance of $800,000, and that amount is also expected to be repaid in full in 2022. The interest rate applied to the outstanding loans for 2020 would be 2.5%, consistent with the previous loans, and total interest revenue for each month outstanding would be estimated to be $6,500. That being said, the city would likely draw on our own line of credit in order to facilitate this loan, so our own interest costs would sort of balance out any revenue to have a nil effect on our bottom line. Anecdotally, I'll just add that we recognize how important this development is to the City of Owen Sound and the great need for housing. And I also am aware that the same request is being made to Grey County and that they will be considering it at their next meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Gregg?
Thanks, Mayor Body. I'd move the recommendation, and I would make the further comment. This really piggybacks on the letter that we had to open the night, which demonstrated the much appreciated partnership with their outgoing city manager, Wayne Ritchie, in constructing or ensuring these housing developments, which have been vital, and they've just done such a terrific job up there in the east side. And here's phase 3 that we're ready to move forward on. So it's a pleasure to move the recommendation, and it comes forward on a wonderful night as Wayne's here for his last council meeting, and after getting the letter from the board earlier. So
Great, thank you. Other comments from councillors or questions? Hearing none, I will call the question. So in favor or opposed, Councillor Dodd?
In favor.
Councillor Gregg?
in favor.
Councillor Hamley?
In favor.
Councillor Kepke?
In favor?
Councillor Merton?
In favor?
Deputy Mayor O'Leary?
In favor.
Councillor Tamming? He's back. Thanks. Councillor Thomas?
In favor.
That is carried. We're down to 12J, which is procedural bylaw.
Through your worship, the Ontario government has provided for an expansion of electronic meetings during periods in which an emergency has been declared by the municipality or the province. Staff are recommending that the procedural bylaw be amended to allow committees to meet electronically, subject to approval from the city manager, as staff resources are still limited. The recommendation in the report is to direct staff to bring forward a bylaw to include emergency meeting provisions as outlined in the report.
Councillor Dodd?
Thank you, Worship. I'd move that recommendation, but I just do have one question. When that was decided by the city manager at the time of which board would be meeting, would they, every committee member go through the same kind of trial period that council did, so that they can actually use the system?
We would probably be looking at using telephone just because it is a little bit easier for those at home to get connected to.
So other councillors, any comments, any questions?
Yes, Brianna, as you know, or Madam Clerk, I've sent you on the outreach, and we have some very eager volunteers from the community and also councillors wanting to get on with things. Can you give us a bit of a timetable when you hope to get this done? I notice you referred to staff resources and so forth. When realistically do you think our committees can go this way?
Through you, Your Worship, I would suggest that this week, Tim and I will certainly look forward to talking to committee chairs and organizing when those meetings will be started, Councillor. So yes, certainly all the committees are eager to get back in involvement. I think we should point out as staff, and I know council is also, the ability of the public to attend all of our council and committee meetings, and quite frankly, for transparency, that is still a very important factor to the community. But we will, this week, I'm sure Tim looks forward to meeting all the committee chairs and the council or the committee members. And so as soon as we can, we will organize those.
For that,
I'm going to call the question. In favor, opposed, Councillor Dodd?
In favor.
Councillor Gregg?
In favor.
Councillor Hamley?
In favor.
Councillor Kepke?
Favor.
Councillor Merton?
In favor?
Deputy Mayor O'Leary?
In favor.
Councillor Tamming?
in
And Councillor Thomas?
In favor.
So that is carried. So we're through section 12 of our agenda into section 13, which is the consent agenda. Bloomfield?
Through your worship, on the consent agenda this evening is minutes for receipt from the police board, library board, and the information package.
Thank you. Councillor Gregg?
Moved by myself, Councillor Gregg. The City Council receives items 13A to 13D on the consent agenda dated May 11th, 2020.
So in favor, opposed, Councillor Dodd.
In favor.
Councillor Gregg.
In favor.
Councillor Hamley.
In favor.
Councillor Kepke.
In favor.
Councillor Merton.
In favor.
Mayor O'Leary.
Favor.
Councillor Tamming. Councillor Thomas.
In favor.
That is carried. I want to go back up to 13A, which is the Owen Sound Police Services Board from February 26th. Councillor Kepke, anything to report?
Thank you, Your Worship. At that meeting in February, we reviewed the draft strategic priorities document, which is better known as the business plan, and made some suggestions and two amendments for the document. So that will be returning. So it's a draft at this stage. Also at that meeting, the budget was returned to the city with a reduction of over $300,000, which included almost $25,000 in board reductions. I wanted to mention that this week being May 10th to the 16th is Police Week in Ontario. This year's theme is Leading the Way to Safer Communities. Quite an appropriate heading for this year. And on behalf of Owen Sound City Council, if I may, Your Worship, I'd like to extend sincere appreciation to the sworn officers, civilians, 911 communicators, auxiliary members, community partners, and other agencies for their contributions and dedications to keeping our community safe. That's it for me, Your Worship.
Great, thank you. We have two sets of minutes from the library board. Councillor Thomas, anything to report?
Your Worship, I'll just draw your attention to an item in the first set of minutes. A number of our patrons will realize that there have been no light pendants in the Carnegie Library for quite some time. And that's because one day a truck went driving by and one of them fell down. So we have been in the process of trying to source out new light pendants, which we have managed to do. And those will be replaced at a cost of $16,000, which will restore the Carnegie wing to its pristine condition. It is one of the best Carnegie libraries in North America at present. So that's one item. And the second item came from the closed minutes, and I know that Councillor Tamming had been interested in actions taken at the library as a result of the shutdown. And effective tomorrow, there will be some layoffs of staff as a cost-saving measure at the library. 3 full-time staff, 9 part-time staff, and 6 part-time students receive their notice, and that becomes effective tomorrow. That's all I had to report, Your Worship.
Great, thank you. News that none of us want to hear or give, isn't it? Down to number 14, we have no committee minutes. Matters postponed, we have no postponed matters. We have no motions for which notice was previously given at number 16. Discussion of additional business. I think Councillor Kepke, you're maybe first.
Thank you, Your Worship. There are issues, not issues, I should say. The water level at the mill dam has been rising, and I wondered if the Director of Corporate Services could just give us an update on conversations with the Conservation Authority on that matter.
Ms. Coulter, can you update?
Your Worship, the dam would normally be in by now. It's been slightly delayed. We understand that perhaps by Wednesday this week, they'll have raised the dam, which will raise the water level behind it and improve the aesthetics along the Sydenham River and as well as in Harrison Park. We're fortunate at this time that the putt and paddle is not operational, so it hasn't impacted that business, and we expect it to be back to normal levels in the very near future.
Further questions, Councillor Kepke? Answer it.
Worship, that's it.
Good, thank you. Thanks, Ms. Coulter. Deputy Mayor O'Leary, 2 items.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first one is maybe the Director of Community Services can comment after I speak. But the river at Harrison Park, it's obviously too late to do it this year because the water level is going to go back up. But I'm wondering if there's something we can do in the future to clean it up, and take out all the old trees and the stumps, and even when it's up to the full level, you go down that river in a kayak and you're still running into stumps that are just 6 inches or 3 inches under the water. And if you look at it right now, it's a complete eyesore. It might be one of the best parks in Canada, and it's just not fair to our residents. We've got people that pay huge taxes down 2nd Avenue West there that, when the water levels are down, I don't know if it's going to take 150 volunteers to go down there sometime in the fall when the water goes down and get that cleaned up. But, and I don't know if we can even do it. Is there roadblocks that stop us from doing something like that?
Ms. Coulter?
Through you, Your Worship, we can certainly explore with Grey Sauble Conservation and DFO what approvals would be required in order to undertake that work. So that would answer, is it possible? And then we would have to look at city resources and staff and our ability to undertake that work. But certainly we can explore that with our staff and Grey Sauble and DFO if that's council's wish.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
To it as well.
If I could, Your Worship, certainly other times we've looked at any work in the water. We run into fish habitat. Those are stumps to us, but we've certainly been told by ministry often that those stumps need to stay there for fish habitat. But Ms. Coulter's correct. We can look at it and get a clear definition of what we're talking about.
Thank you for that.
Next item, Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, second one, Your Worship, a few people have asked me about an editorial that appeared in the Sun-Times last week titled a tour of the Grey Bruce Health Unit. I explained to those people, and I want to explain it now, that the editorial was the opinion of one councillor and doesn't reflect the majority opinion of council. Your Worship, Dr. Ara and the members of his staff at the Grey Bruce Health Unit have done a spectacular job protecting our community during the past 10 weeks. I couldn't even guess the number of hours everyone there has worked during this pandemic, but it's a lot. That goes for the board members as well, who have been meeting regularly through the entire crisis. And through their questions have reflected the concerns of community members, concerns like when they can start doing things normally. So, Your Worship, I would ask that you send a letter of thanks to the Grey Bruce Health Unit on behalf of the citizens of Owen Sound, thanking it for the work that it's been done to ensure the health and safety of the residents of our city. And I think it would be nice if all of the members of council would like to, could sign it as well. Before I bring that motion, I think just to cover my tracks, I would move, first of all, that we waive the notice of provision.
Okay with that? Yep, okay. Motion first to waive. Okay, so motion first to waive the notice to bring this motion, which is, well, first of all, this is just a motion to waive the notice. So I'll call the question in favor, opposed. Councillor Dodd.
In favor.
Councillor Gregg.
In favor.
Councillor Hamley.
In favor.
Councillor Kepke.
In favor.
Councillor Merton.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
In favor.
Councillor Tamming. Councillor Thomas.
In favor.
That's carried, so that waives the notice. So Deputy Mayor O'Leary, your motion then?
So the motion is, I'd like to ask you to send a letter of thanks to the Grey Bruce Public Health Unit on behalf of the citizens of Owen Sound, thanking it for the work that's been done to ensure the health and safety of the residents of our city. And I think it would be nice if all the members of council would sign that as well.
Okay, so I'm going to call the question. Councillor Dodd.
In favor.
Councillor Gregg.
In favor.
Councillor Hamley.
In favor.
Councillor Kepke. Councillor Merton.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
In favor.
Councillor Tamming.
In favor.
Councillor Thomas.
In favor.
Okay, so we'll get probably Sharon Edwards to prepare that letter And we'll have to figure out how to get everyone in one at a time to sign it. We'll do that in the next few days. I did have the opportunity to talk to Dr. Era on a call with all the mayors of Graham Bruce, and I did take that opportunity to thank him and the Board of Health for all the work that they are doing. So we'll get that letter to them. Thank you. Business. Who am I down to? Councillor Hamley, I think you were the next one on that list.
I was just in light of the fact that we haven't had committee meetings in the last little while. I was just wondering if the Director of Public Works and Engineering could give us a little bit of an update on the 10th Street Bridge.
Kafalis?
You're muted, Dennis.
Dennis, you're muted.
Is that better?
That's a lot better. Yep.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship, thank you for the question. I will be bringing a more detailed report at the next meeting. However, right now I can say that all the piling is completed on the west side of the bridge. They'll be removing a little bit of additional material that we found a bit of a surcharge in the ground on the west side. So they'll be removing that material and starting form work for the, first they'll pour a mud slab and then they'll start form work for the abutment. They are starting to, well, they finished the removals on the east side with the old wood piles associated with the old bridge, and there was a retaining wall that they found. It might have been one of the original harbor walls against a timber structure. Those had to be removed. They're in the process of doing that, and they're trying to install the corrugated metal pipes that they use as a guide for the H piles. So that's where they're at the east side. They are going to start looking at doing some water main work on the west side as well as the form work. So we should see 3 crews working simultaneously on the project. Again, we're going through the actual detailed schedule to see where we stand and what impacts this will have on the overall project schedule. Because we did run into some issues with that building, the Gavaris building that's still remaining. Showed some settlement in one of the corners, a bit of horizontal displacement. Right now seems to have slowed down or essentially stopped on some days. So the contractor was looking for direction from our consultant on how to proceed in terms of construction methods. Very hard for our consultant to give them those directions, but they are increasing the monitoring associated with vibration and with different activities. We're finding that it's having very little impact, the activities in terms of generating a high level of vibration. So we know that we're well within industry standards in terms of what would have an impact on that building. So, I mean, it's a guess of, everyone has I guess, a sort of their own interpretation of what may be going on with the building. Right now, we'll continue to monitor and then progress and proceed with the work. So by the 25th, I should have a better idea of exactly where we are in the schedule and see what the impacts will have with the completion of the project.
Thank you. Does that answer the question, Councillor Hamley?
Yes, thanks.
Thank you. Last point I want to make in the additional business is just this. Dr. Era in the health unit sends out daily reports to us of COVID cases in Grey Bruce and within our own municipalities. Within the city of Owen Sound, we have not had a new case in 19 days. I hope, touch wood, I hope I don't regret saying that with some kind of bad luck. We had a total of 44 cases to date within Owen Sound. Half of them were at one long-term care residence, which we know has been declared through it and back in good standing. We've had a minimal number of cases, new cases across Graham Bruce, and certainly we know there really isn't any borders that we're all in this together. And I thought I'd written down that number, but I think it's only 2 new cases in the past week across all of Graham Bruce. So all of our hard work is working. We have out of a total 90 cases that we've had in Graham Bruce, we've got 72 recovered, which is also pretty amazing. But we've got a long weekend coming, and we've got to be very careful that we're not inviting friends from afar to come in. Not just yet. We want our tourists, but not just yet. not quite ready. Keep being disciplined, keep doing what you're doing, and let's try and get those numbers lower. Those are amazing numbers, and let's keep it going. So that's my comment. Motion that the Committee of the Whole rise and report.
Moved by myself, Councillor Gregg, that the Committee of the Whole rise and report.
In favor, Councillor Dodd.
In favor.
Councillor Gregg.
In favor.
Councillor Hamley.
Favor.
Councillor Kepke.
In favor.
Councillor Merton.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
Favor.
Councillor Tamming.
In favor.
And Councillor Thomas.
In favor.
That's carried. 18, wasn't it? We got now 19.
Moved by myself, Councillor Gregg, seconded by Councillor Dodd, that the action taken in Committee of the Whole in considering public meetings, deputations and presentations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports of city staff, consent agenda, committee minutes, matters postponed, motions for which notice was previously given, and additional business be confirmed by this council.
Councillor Dodd.
In favor.
Councillor Gregg.
In favor.
Councillor Hamley.
In favor.
Councillor Kepke.
In favor.
Councillor Merton.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
Favor.
Councillor Tamming.
In favor.
Councillor Thomas.
In favor.
So that is carried. Number 20, notices of motion. Are there any notices to be given? Hearing none. Bylaws. Bloomfield.
Through you, Your Worship, the bylaws listed for approval on tonight's agenda include the confirmatory bylaw, a bylaw to establish the city's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, a bylaw to amend the delegation of powers and duties bylaw to reference the new city manager contract, a bylaw to execute a servicing agreement for the API Hotel at 1200 16th Avenue East, a bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw respecting Heritage Grove Center Inc. lands at 2125 16th Street East, bylaw to amend the procedural bylaw to provide for electronic participation in meetings of committees during declared emergencies, and a bylaw to adopt the campground refund policy.
Greg.
Moved by myself, Councillor Gregg, seconded by Councillor Dodd, that bylaw numbers 2020-047, 048, 049, 050, 051, 052, and 2020-053 be passed and enacted.
So call the question. All in favor, Councillor Dodd.
In favor.
Councillor Gregg.
In favor.
Councillor Hamley.
In favor.
Councillor Kepke.
In favor.
Councillor Merton.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
In favor.
Councillor Tamming.
In favor.
Councillor Thomas.
In favor.
So that is carried. So I think that completes our business for tonight. It is now about 2 minutes to 9 p.m. Thank you again, Wayne, for the last umpteen years, and especially the last 5 as city manager. And boy, I've got a list for you to do in the next week. It's just going to be piled right up to get everything done. And yeah, just don't pass the list on. Thank you very much again. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
See you.